Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The poem of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wassalam that was just recited before me by Bilal Raja Sahib. It had a couplet of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam wherein Hazur says, Sidq se meri taraf aao, isi mein khair hai. Hain darinde har taraf, main afiyat ka hoon hisar. That come to me with sincerity and goodness, for therein lies all the success and all the goodness for you. This statement of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam means that the blessings that Allah the Almighty sends forth in this world with the prophets of God, the same blessings are found with Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam's person as well. But only those individuals can truly benefit from those blessings or these blessings who come to Huzur alayhi salatu wasalam with sincerity and true heart. You see, Allah the Almighty sends His messengers, His prophets, His awliyaullah in this world so that they can be seen as the manifestation of God's attributes on earth. To further explain this point, promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam has given the example of iron which is put in fire. Hazur has stated that if you take a piece of iron and you put it in fire, a time comes when that iron starts to mimic the attributes of fire. The color of fire is red, and a time comes upon iron that it becomes red as well. Another attribute of fire is that it burns, and an iron that has been left in the fire for a long extended period of time, it also mimics that attribute of fire as well, and it starts to burn just the same way the fire works. Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam has stated, बसा औकात अंबिया और औलिया के दिलों में पैदा होने वाली ख्वाहिश या लबों से निकले हुए अल्फाज खुदा की तकदीर का रूप इख्तियार कर लेते हैं. Many a times it happens that a desire is born in the mind and heart of a prophet of God or a waliullah, or they say something, and that desire, that wish, or their very words that they utter, they themselves become the taqdeer of Allah the Almighty, the decree of Allah the Almighty. मगर ये कैफियत खुदा के अंबिया पे हर वक्त तारी नहीं होती. But this state does not remain on the prophets of God throughout, meaning it's not there indefinitely, it's not there constantly. Rather, it comes in episodes. Hazur alayhi salam फरमाते हैं, अगर ये हालत हर वक्त तारी रहे तो खदशा होता है कि कहीं लोग अंबिया और औलिया को खुदा की कुर्सी पर ना ला बिठाएं. Hazur has mentioned that the reason this state does not remain constantly on prophets and the awliya of God is so that there is a distinction between creation and the Creator, and so that people may not take the prophets of God or the awliyaullah and put them on the pedestal of divinity. But those who are sincere in their faith, in order to increase them in their faith, Allah the Almighty makes them witness such signs in the blessed company of the prophets of God, their khulafa, and of course the awliyaullah. So today, what I want to do before you is to share some signs, some testimonies from the companions of the promised Messiah Islam, who were blessed by Allah the Almighty to witness such signs before their very eyes. Hazrat Sheikh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Wais Razila Ta'ala anhu, a companion of the promised Messiah, who had accepted Islam from Hinduism. He states that once he was sitting in the company of promised Messiah والسلام, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani والسلام, and Hazur was giving a speech. And while Hazur was giving his speech, Sheikh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib started to think in his mind that this man who is speaking to us, his name is Ghulam Ahmad. My name is Ghulam Ahmad as well. Allah speaks with him every single day, but Allah does not speak with me ever. While he was thinking about this, Allah the Almighty expressed that moment to be that precise time when Allah revealed it to Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ what Shaykh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib was thinking. So while giving his speech, Hazur stopped for a second, for a moment. Hazur looked in the direction of Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, Shaykh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib, directly looked at him and addressed him. And Hazur said, "Haan, jis par Khuda ka fazl ho jaye." That yes, it will happen to that individual, meaning Allah will speak with that individual, on whom Allah Ta'ala showers His grace and mercy. After saying this, Hazur turned back to the audience and resumed his speech. Shaykh Ghulam Ahmad Sahib Wais Razila Ta'ala anhu states that from that same night, Allah started to send His revelation to me in the form of ilham as well. Alhamdulillah. Another story comes. A Muslim sage in Iran, more than 110 years ago, is praying to Allah, "Oh Allah, guide me." And at that time, Allah the Almighty sends revelation to him, speaks with him, and tells him, "Maqsoode tu az Qadiyan hasil mi shawad." What you're asking for will happen if you go to Qadian. You'll find guidance there. Now, imagine a man in Iran who has no idea where Qadian is. He starts his journey, ends up in Peshawar, modern day Pakistan. Starts inquiring from people about this place called Qadian. And remember, Qadian was a very tiny hamlet. It's a very small village back then. So somehow he finds the place and he gets to Qadian. And he's Persian. He does not speak Urdu. He does not speak Punjabi. And the people in Qadian, they could barely speak Urdu at that time. Their main language back then in Qadian was Punjabi, as is still today. So this man ends up in Qadian and he's walking in the marketplace and he's asking people in Farsi. He's saying to people, "Mirza Sahib kujast?" Where is Mirza Sahib? Nobody understood what this man was saying. He would say, "Masih Maud kujast?" Where is Masih Maud? Where is the promised Messiah? Nobody could understand. At that very moment, the promised Messiah والسلام, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani والسلام, had gone out for a walk with some of his companions. And Allah revealed to Masih Maud ﷺ through revelation that you are walking and there is a man looking for you in the marketplace. So Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ with his companions took a turn and went towards the marketplace instead. And there, that Persian man, that Iranian man, sees Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ among his companions. And after learning that Hazur is the promised Messiah alayhi salam, he came and he hugged Hazur and he started crying. He started crying that Allah has guided him to Qadian and ultimately to the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. And Hazur also started crying, seeing this sight. Imagine what the companions who were around Masih Maud alayhi salam at that moment, what they were feeling. And they started to cry as well as they witnessed this sign, which definitely, most definitely increased their faith in Allah and in the truthfulness of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. Another companion of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam narrates, he says that I became mute due to a specific illness of my tongue. I could not speak. He says, I went to Qadian and wrote a letter to Huzur explaining my illness and presented it, meaning he presented the letter to Huzur, the promised Messiah alayhi salam. And in that letter he had asked that, Huzur, this is what has happened to me and I'm unable to speak, so please pray that Allah Ta'ala cures me of this illness. Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam took the letter from his hand and in a very quick fashion Huzur glanced at it. When Hazur reached the phrase that I am unable to speak, Hazur handed that letter back to him. And Hazur said, read what it says. The man, with his hand gesture, he gestured to Huzur that I cannot speak, so this is the reason why I've written the letter, please read. The promised Messiah alayhi salam said to him, read what the letter says. And it happened 3-4 times back and forth. Until the man said, I'll give it a try. He said in his heart that he'll give it a try. And the moment he tried to read what was on that letter that he himself had composed, his tongue untied and he started to speak fluently. And right there and then, Allah the Almighty, through the blessings of the promised Messiah ﷺ, cured this Sahabi of his illness. An elderly man visited Qadian from the city of Imroha. He was in his late 60s to maybe early 70s or so. And he had lost his hearing to the extent that he would walk around with a rubber pipe in his hand. He would ask people to speak loudly into that pipe while he would insert the other end of that pipe in his ear so that he could hear somewhat. And this way he was able to hear some words at best. He came to the promised Messiah alayhi salam when Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam was busy delivering a speech to a congregation. And while Hazur was speaking, this man said, Hazur, I am unable to understand. I can't hear. Pray that I am able to hear you. And the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, in that moment, us ghadi mein, Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam farmate hain, in that moment the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam said, I will pray for you, and indeed Allah has the power to cure your deafness. As soon as Hazur alayhi salam mentioned these words, that Sahabi's deafness was cured right there and then before every person to see and witness. This Sahabi himself says that he heard the entire speech of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salam, the remainder of Hazur's speech, without having any difficulty, without the need to use any pipe whatsoever. At the end of Hazur's speech, the man threw his rubber pipe away, saying that now I am able to hear. I do not need this device anymore. Subhanallah. This is the blessing that is carried in this world with the blessed person of the prophets of God and those whom Allah loves, such as his khulafa and awliyaullah. Another companion of the promised Messiah alayhi salam narrates that both of my legs were in severe pain. I got it checked by many doctors, but to no avail. and I had to use crutches in order to move about. He says, I came to Qadian and even got treatment from Maulana Hakim Nuruddin Sahib Razila Talanhu, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Awwal, who was, even at that time, one of the most famous physicians. But nothing happened. The pain was still there. The man was still walking with crutches. And even then, barely. One day, Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam came to Masjid Mubarak and everyone stood up in respect. But due to extreme pain in my legs, the companion says, I could not stand. But while walking into the masjid, one of the feet of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam accidentally touched my foot. And the moment Hazur's foot touched my foot, the pain from that specific leg disappeared right away. Afterwards, when Hazur alayhi salam was leaving the mosque, making his way back to his home, he said, I was in the way. I asked Hazur, I said, Hazur, although what I am about to request you is not respectful, but I have a request if you could kindly place your foot on my other leg or on my other foot. Hazur alayhi salam did not ask him the reason behind this request that the Sahabi was making. Hazur alayhi salam did not say, what are you asking me for? What's the reason behind it? None of that. The promised Messiah alayhi salam complied. Hazur alayhi salam gently put his foot on the other leg of this man, or on the other foot of this man. And right there and then, Allah Ta'ala cured this man of his illness that he was experiencing for the longest time, that no doctor was able to cure. Right there and then, the man threw his crutches from the staircase of Masjid Mubarak, and he went straight to the clinic of Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin Sahib Razila Talanhu. And he said that, Sir, you had given me medicines, but nothing worked. And today, Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam cured me by simply putting his foot on my feet. Hazrat Maulana Nuruddin Sahib Razila Talanhu very beautifully commented. And he said, मैं एक मामूली हकीम, मैं तो सिर्फ दवा दारू कर सकता हूँ, और वो खुदा का पैगंबर मेरी दवाई की पुड़ियाँ खुदा के पैगंबर के वजूद की बरकत का मुकाबला नहीं कर सकती. He said, I am just an ordinary doctor. All I can do is prescribe medication. And he, referring to Masih Maud alayhi salam, he is a prophet of God. How can the medication that I prescribe ever parallel the blessings that the person of Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam carries with him? Subhanallah. Companions of the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam used to state that when they would come to Qadian, they would gather the breadcrumbs of rotis that Hazur alayhi salam had touched. We would also take the rotis from Langar Khana of Masih Maud alayhi salam. We would then grind them into smaller bits. And when someone would fall sick in our homes, we would feed those breadcrumbs of Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam's rotis and the rotis of Langar Khana to our sick, and Allah would cure their illnesses this way. Hazrat Qazi Akmal Sahib Razila Talanhu, another companion of the promised Messiah alayhi salam, had contracted tuberculosis in a very young age. His father was told by physicians that nothing can be done for your son. He has entered the last and final stage of his illness. More than 100 years ago, tuberculosis was a death warrant. It was taken when somebody would contract this disease, people would think that this is it. There is no way this man can be cured. It was considered as an incurable disease. About 5 decades ago, the cure for tuberculosis was successfully discovered, and it takes about 6 months to cure someone. But imagine more than 100 years ago, a young man in his prime His father is told by the physicians, nothing can be done for your son, don't waste your money on him. The man in his desperation comes to Qadian, to Promised Messiah ﷺ, and says, Hazur, we have read that those who are chosen ones of God, those who are close to Allah, beloved of God, that Allah Ta'ala blesses even their leftovers and puts shifa, puts cure in that. Can we get some tabarruk, some breadcrumbs as leftovers from what you have left? Hazrat Masih Maud Islam pointed towards the food that he was having and he said, you can take this. Qazi Akmal Saab's father brought those breadcrumbs back and he grinded them very fine, very finely. And then he presented those to his son, and his tuberculosis, which was at its final stage, became cured. This is what the promised Messiah ﷺ had said, had meant when he said, Sidq se meri taraf aao, isi mein khair hai. Come to me with sincerity, for all goodness lies therein. Hazrat Mian Muhammad Siddiq Sahib of Sikwan, another companion of the promised Messiah ﷺ, narrates, my eyes used to shed water profusely, and I was not able to have them cured. I read that the ilham of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, that kings shall seek blessings from thy garments. He says, I said in my heart that I do not know when these kings will come and seek blessings from the blessed garments of Masih Maud ﷺ. But if kings can seek blessings from the garments of Hazur, why can't I? So, with this thought, he came to the majlis of Hazur ﷺ, where Hazur was sitting, and he sat right behind Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ. And in a very quiet manner, he took the shimla, the cloth of the turban which is behind one's back. He took that and he started to rub the cloth of Hazrat Masih Maud's turban on his eyes. And once he did that, Allah Ta'ala cured him of this disease right there and then. Hazrat Mian Muhammad Sharif Sahib Razillah Ta'ala anhu states that he had cataracts in both of his eyes. In both of his eyes he had cataracts. He says that he also for a few days rubbed Hazur's turban's cloth on his eyes, and Allah Ta'ala cured him of both of these cataracts in his eyes. There was a lady, a sahabi of Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, who also had the same problem of cataracts, and she also rubbed the cloth, the blessed cloth of Hazur ﷺ's turban, and as a result Allah Ta'ala cured her of her illness as well. Hazrat Mian Firozuddin Sahib's story is on another level. He had severe pain in his knees, due to which he was unable to walk and had to be carried by a couple of people in order for him to move around. He was advanced in age. So one day he came and he sat in the blessed gathering of the promised Messiah ﷺ. And on that day, in that single moment, Allah the Almighty's Prophet, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ, looked in the direction of Mian Firozuddin Sahib. And Hazur asked him, Mian Firozuddin, how are you? And he replied, Hazur, I am in extreme pain and I cannot move or walk. ये वो घड़ी थी जब खुदा के प्यारों पे कभी कभी आया करती है. It was that moment that comes on the prophets and the dear ones of Allah the Almighty from time to time. Hazur said to him, Mian Firozuddin, utho, utho. Which means, Mian Firozuddin, get up, get up. He replied, Hazur, I cannot. Hazur again said it to him, Mian Firozuddin, utho, utho. And this time, out of respect, Mian Firozuddin Sahib tried to straighten out his legs, and he noticed that there was no pain whatsoever, and he was able to get up, and even in old age, that pain did not return. He lived another 4 or 5 years after this, and he did not get pain in his legs, in his knees, in his legs ever again. You know, we read about the stories of prophets of Allah the Almighty. But here we have a prophet of God who appeared not too long ago, 100 years ago. And here are the signs that people that were around him witnessed. I'm almost towards the end of my speech. Hazrat Mistri Qutubuddin Sahib Razila Ta'ala used to make a walking stick for Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam. He would make a new one after some time and send it to Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam and request that Hazur return the old stick back to Qutubuddin Sahib. Once, his daughter Hazrat Bibi Aisha Razila Ta'ala Anha narrates that once my father made a new walking stick for Hazur and gave it to me to take it to Hazur alayhi salam and to bring the old one back. She says, I presented the new one, Hazur accepted it, and then I asked Hazur if I could take the previous one back with me. Hazur said, you can go into the room and you can get it from there. She says, when I got it and I was on my way out, Hazur said, yes, take it back with you. Because I've been told by Allah that this stick of mine, whichever household this stick of mine will be in, no snakes will ever enter that household. She says, by the blessing of that walking cane of Hazur alayhi salatu wasalam, no snakes ever entered their home. Hazrat Chaudhry Ahmad Deen Sahib of Sheikhupura Razila Ta'ala Anhu states that he once mentioned to Hazur alayhi salam that my relatives have become my enemy and have lodged many cases against me. Please pray for me. Hazur alayhi salam, after listening to my pleas, put his blessed hand on my head and said, do not worry, Ahmad Deen. Allah will safeguard you from every trouble. Hazrat Chaudhry Sahib says that soon after this, all the cases against me that were lodged were thrown out by the courts and the verdicts were issued in my favor instead. Subhanallah. Hazrat Munshi Zafar Ahmad Sahib Razila Ta'ala Anhu of Kapurthala narrates that Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib, another companion of the Promised Messiah alayhi salam, who retired from the postal services with a pension of 2.5 rupees monthly. He and his family would barely make the ends meet, and even then with extreme difficulty. Munshi Zafar Ahmad Sahib was once on his way to Qadian. He stopped over at Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib's home to spend the night, as the two were friends. Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib treated him and hosted him graciously. Afterwards, Munshi Zafar Ahmad Sahib somehow found out that Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib had to sell a couple of utensils in order to buy food for his guest. He felt extremely bad, extremely sad about this. The next day, both the friends started their journey to Qadian. Munshi Zafar Ahmad Sahib purchased the tickets for both of them. Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib wanted to pay for his own ticket, but Zafar Sahib instead said that, why don't you pay this as Nazrana, as a token to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam? Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib, who was receiving a pension of 2.5 rupees, just 2.5 rupees. He presented 2 rupees out of 2.5 rupees as Nazrana to Huzur. Can you imagine for a second, for a moment, here you have a companion of Masih Maud alayhi salam who is making 2.5 rupees a month, barely making ends meet. And he presents that to the promised Messiah alayhi salam. 4/5 of his entire income, he gives it as a token to the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam. Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib, when he presented this to Huzur, and when they were about to leave, the promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam said, Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib, aap zara thahar jayein. Huzur went back in, came back and presented 12 rupees to Munshi Sahib. Munshi Sahib started to cry profusely and he said, Hazur, you are my master. I have done your bad. It is my responsibility to be in your service, not the other way around. He cried and he would not take the money until Hazur had to call his friend, Munshi Zafar Ahmad Sahib, to come and tell Munshi Ali Gohar Sahib to take this money from Hazur. This man took the money from Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, went back home, and within few days, he got a job for 12 rupees per month as his salary. My dear brothers and sisters, these blessings that these companions witnessed and benefited from the person of Masih Maud salam, those blessings still exist in our time as well, through the person of Khalifa Waqt. If we want to participate, if we want to benefit from these blessings, then we have to sincerely come to Khalifa Waqt as well. Hazur alayhi salam in his book, The Will, Risala al-Wasiyat, has mentioned that those who have believed in him with sincerity and that there is no hint of materialism or the love for this world in their hearts, it is they who stand firmly on truth. May Allah the Almighty make me and all of you, may Allah the Almighty make all the Ahmadi Muslims in the world, may Allah the Almighty make us witness these blessings through the blessed person of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Khamis, Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Nasr al-Aziz. May we also come to Huzur with sincerity and true heart. May Allah Ta'ala accept us. Ameen. At the very end, I just have one excerpt of Hazrat Masih Maud salam, which was published in Majmua Ishtaharat, volume number 3. On page 3 it says, and this is regarding when there is a virus, when there is a pandemic or an epidemic in the society around us. At that time, the promised Messiah ﷺ wrote, हर एक को चाहिए कि इस वक्त अपनी अपनी समझ और बसीरत के मुवाफिक नौए इंसान की हमदर्दी में मशगूल हो, क्योंकि वो शख्स इंसान नहीं जिसमें हमदर्दी का मादा ना हो। और ये अमर भी निहायत ज़रूरी है कि गवर्नमेंट की तदबीरों और हिदायतों को बदगुमानी की नज़र से ना देखा जाए. Promised Messiah ﷺ stated that every man, every person, according to their own intellect, should try their level best to be of service to other creation of Allah the Almighty, because one who does not have sympathy, compassion and empathy in their heart for the creation of Allah Ta'ala, they are not in line with the desires of Allah the Almighty, and they cannot be considered as real human beings, because being a human being means that you have sympathy, means you have mercy, means you have empathy for other creation of Allah Ta'ala. And at the end, Hazur said, and this is also very important, that the guidelines that the governmental authorities are issuing, that you follow them and you do not look at them in a wrong way. Nowadays, locally here in the United States of America, CDC is issuing various guidelines. And the state level authorities, federal authorities are also issuing guidelines for our safety. So we should not look at these guidelines with any, with malice. Rather, we should take these guidelines because they are for our safety, and we should act accordingly. May Allah the Almighty keep us all safe. Ameen. Wa akhiru dawana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.